Right, hello everybody, Keith here again. This is something of an emergency repot. It's my Psychopsis Mariposa, which is not looking very well at all and hasn't looked very good since I got back from hospital. It's unfortunate because somebody came in and helped my wife Ruth look after, check that she was doing okay with the orchids, and she went through this and she didn't know that Psychopsis flower on repetitively on the same flower stalk, and she cut both flower stalks off. I don't know whether the plant didn't like that or what, but it's not happy. It's been in here not all that long. It's 12, 10, 22, but I'm going to assume that it's not happy, that the mix is wrong or something like that, because as you can see here we've got a pseudobulb that isn't too bad where the leaf's gone, but there's one here which gone black, so I need to get it out, get that pseudobulb off, and really try and see if I can save it. I think I can, because we have got some new roots emerging on this, but it does need some fairly rapid work. Now the problem with this is that I normally use a bark mix with moss in. This is damp low down. I don't think these roots are very good. It's probably been overwatered, even with those holes in the pot. Now in fact we've got roots coming from two ends of the plant. We've got some here and we've got some round there, so I think there's a chance of doing some good with it, and I did wonder about trying a slightly shallower pot, but depending on what state these roots are in when I finally come down to it, I think, oh hang on, we've got a new growth. Oh, that's nice to see. I don't know if you can see that up by my fingernail. We've actually got a new growth coming there. So I'm going to shut down a minute to clean these roots off, go through them and give them a good looking at. A lot of these roots do not look great. But I don't think you really need to look at this. These are the standard, are the roots solid or a bit squidgy and all the rest of it. I think there's actually going to be very, very few viable roots left on this when I finish with it. So I'm going to trim this lot, and I'll come back to you when I'm a bit more ready to go. So I'll see you in a minute or two. Well, as I suspected, the roots were pretty manky. It's kind of what you'd expect looking at the state of the leaves, which are not very clever, looking a bit shrunken. But as I say, we have got some new roots coming at both ends of the plant, although this end they're not as good as I thought they might be, and there's a possibility that it's going to split if I'm not very careful. But at the moment I've trimmed the roots back because I want some of them to grip a little bit. I'm going to put it into this. Now this one is shallower because what I don't want is to have a lot of bark down in the bottom of the pot which isn't going to dry at all. Psychopsis are slightly peculiar beasts. They are supposedly a moisture loving plant, and they are, except they don't like wet feet. They still like to have a drying cycle, and I always call it, like I do with the zygos, a wet damp cycle rather than a wet dry cycle. And I've found through keeping this over several years now that it wants to get to that damp state in about 7 to 10 days from being watered. So I'm going to, because this is terracotta and not plastic, it should draw some of that moisture out and help it breathe that little bit better. So I'm not going to put moss in it. What I want to do is get this so that it dries perhaps a bit quicker. I think that's been one of the problems with this one. The moss that I put in, I've tried to keep the moss content right down, and it's not really working very well. So I'm going to go for a fairly fine bark, one of the finer barks that I've got, and put it in this shallow pot. And if it then ends up that the roots go down and I've got to repot it into something deeper, well, that's fine and dandy, I don't mind that. But I need to get some moisture into this plant as soon as I possibly can, or I'm going to lose all of it. And I don't want to do that. It's gone from being a really healthy plant to being a very unhealthy plant fairly quickly. So give me a couple of seconds to get ready for this bit and we'll have another go. Okay, I've started off putting a small layer of coarse bark in the bottom to try and crock it, and now I'm just going to go through the usual repotting routine of using, pouring bark in, trying to get it in between the roots as they are, work my way around and just hope that I can do it. Now this is Burnham Nursery's medium bark, which I bought from them at a show a little while ago, and I hope that this on its own, with it being that little bit smaller, will retain enough moisture to suit this plant. I've got the feeling that the moss was keeping it too wet too long, and I've had that before, because when I first bought it and the first time I repotted it, I used too much moss and it wasn't happy. It does not like to, they like moisture. Well, they might come from a humid environment. It doesn't mean that they get an awful lot of I think with that the roots are fairly close to the new roots, at least are fairly close to the surface of the medium. It's pretty tight. I'm not going to entertain trying to pick the plant up and try and get the pot with it. I know that's what people say it should be. Repot it should be this time and what have you. I think that's, for me, that's a bit of an old wives' tale, if I'm being absolutely honest. I think it just needs to be in there reasonably tight. But one thing you can't do with any orchid is leave it to wobble. If it wobbles in a little bit like that, it won't root very well. They do not like to be waving in the breeze. And if you imagine this on the branch of a tree, anything that's out and has grown away from the bark, which can need very long roots to get back, I think the plant would naturally have evolved not to put roots out from that. So you need to get it reasonably stable. So I'm going to put a short stake in there and tie it around one of these to try and stabilise this end. So anyway, that I think will do for this particular one. So this is a quick, urgent repot of my Psychopsis Mariposa. I've taken 2 pseudobulbs off it. While I was trimming the roots, I realised there was another pseudobulb that was going black, so I've taken that off. Something else I've noticed with this is it will not have pseudobulbs getting wet and staying wet. If they are in a lot of the Symphodia orchids, you can bury old pseudobulbs if they start to climb. This one you cannot. If you start trying to bury a pseudobulbs, the whole thing will rot like lightning. So I once tried to do that and had to repot it within days because they just went black virtually overnight. So you've got to be very careful with these that you don't get them get the pseudobulbs wet, but you've got to keep the roots wet. So it's a fine dividing line. So that's that. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll find that interesting. It's another one of those, do as I say, not as I do. Although I think the problem with this has been me being away in hospital and then having to come back up to speed over the last 6 or 7 weeks and really start taking a proper interest in things again as my health's improved. That's what caused this thing to go backwards. But anyway, as I say, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.